Okay, so Glenn Alsop from gaps.com, viperchill.com. In fact, he is one of the people who, when I first started blogging, he and I collaborated a lot together. We linked to each other quite a bit. We just got on calls on Skype and helped each other out. And I do have to credit Glenn a lot for a lot of the SEO help that was really important in the early days of SPI. So I had Glenn on my show recently, and I asked him the question, if you were just starting out, but you wanted to get on somebody else's radar, how would you do it? And you essentially said the same thing. I would say, okay, figure out whose radar you want to be on and what is the most important thing for them right now. Guaranteed, if you can help them with that, it doesn't matter who you are, you will stand out, you will be on their radar. And I was like, can you give me an example of that, right? Like a good podcast interviewer should do. It's like, okay, you're telling me these things, like give me an example. And he gave me a very clear example. He said, Pat, okay, I know you are developing this tool called the SwitchPod right now. And this tool, if you don't know, is an invention that my videographer Caleb Wojcik and I invented. We launched on Kickstarter in February of 2019. And this was right around the time when I interviewed Glenn. Glenn said, Pat, if somebody random came up to you and said, Pat, I know a person who happens to know Casey Neistat, and I'd love to make an introduction for you just to kind of see if there's any synergies there. Would you say yes? And I was like, of course I would say yes. That would be the most ultimate thing that would ever happen in regards to the SwitchPod. And he was like, see, it doesn't matter who that person is. You immediately got triggered by something that is important to you right now. So our job as people who want to collaborate with others is to first understand, number one, who do we want to collaborate with? Not just for you, but for your audience, right? Like it would be great to collaborate with somebody to help more people find your stuff. And that stuff should be valuable, of course. But secondly, what can you do to serve them? And I was like, man, you'd be my best friend right now if you could help me connect with Casey Neistat. Now, what was really cool was that I was eventually able to connect with Casey Neistat at Craft and Commerce, which was an event put on by ConvertKit. ConvertKit is an email service provider that I am a massive supporter of. I'm an affiliate. I'm an advisor to the company. And in fact, this is their t-shirt. Big shout out to ConvertKit. And it was at ConvertKit 2018 at the after party on the roof of one of the buildings that we were in, where I got to meet Casey. And I actually handed him the SwitchPod. And back then it was like a much larger prototype. And he said, well, hey, I love this idea. Finally, somebody's building something for vloggers. I think it should be smaller, and I think it should just be black because we don't want it to stand out. We just want it to be discreet. And we're like, okay, yes, exactly. And then our prototype and the size and the color of our SwitchPod, which by the way, we've sold out of the first 10,000 already. We're literally sold out right now. We're waiting for a shipment to come in this week, but we're sold out. Anyway, big thanks to Casey for his inspiration, and big thanks to Nathan from ConvertKit, who was the person who introduced me to that person, which takes me to the second method that you can get introduced to somebody else too. And that would be through an introduction, right? Through an introduction. And the network that you have now is directly related to your net worth. I don't know if you've heard that phrase before, right? But it's your net worth is proportional to your network. And you've also heard the phrase, you are the sum of the five, or you're the average of the five people you spend most of your time with, right? Same thing. I mean, it doesn't work out perfectly in the math, but it just makes sense. Those who you spend time with and those who you collaborate with are going to be representative of the kinds of things and the kind of success that you have as well. So getting an introduction to somebody is huge. And asking for that favor every once in a while can be quite hard. However, this is where digging your well before you're thirsty comes into play. Let me say that again. Digging your well before you're thirsty. And this is where I want to give a shout out to Jordan Harbinger, who came on the podcast recently to talk about what's called layoff lifelines. So let me tell you about layoff lifelines here. I'm getting the reps in, y'all. So layoff lifelines are something that Jordan talked about when he was a guest on my show. And it was something that saved him recently when he was the host of the Art of Charm podcast. And his business partners literally kicked him out of the business and then continued to use some of his name. He did all this hard work to make this brand very popular, and then he got kicked out. He started reaching out to people who he had built a relationship with over time, who he had been serving for years. And what was really cool is he reached out to me and he said, Pat, this is what happened. I just was calling to ask you for some support. I don't know exactly what to do, but I just want you to know that I might need your help very soon. And I was like, bro, I'm there for you. And the reason why I was there for him is because for years, he had continually been reaching out to check on me, to see how I was doing, just for no other agenda than to keep that relationship going. It's when you start digging your well, if you are thirsty, that it's already too late, right? You're already too late. You're parched. And an example of digging your well when it's too late would be the moment you finally have a product to promote. Now you're reaching out to people and asking for help. Like, hey, Dave, I know we haven't talked for 4 years, but I have this ebook about dog training that I'd love to promote to your audience. It's never gonna work, right? So spending time to develop these relationships ahead of time is gonna be absolutely key, such that when there is an opportunity to collab or an opportunity to offer, for example, a JV partnership, a joint venture partnership with somebody such that, they will promote your product in exchange for an affiliate commission. It's so much easier to have these conversations if you do this later, after you build that relationship, right? So, really, really important. Dig your well now before you're thirsty. Reach out to people who are in your space and see what you can do to serve them with no other agenda than to just connect and see what you can do for them or just say hello. Reach out to people who in the past you haven't reached out to in a while, to reconnect to those people so that at one point in the future, when you have an idea to collab, maybe it's an idea for, this is another way that collabs work, and the best kind of collabs are the ones where, hey, I'd love to interview you for my podcast, and I'd love to be a guest on your show too and help your audience as well, right? And so now there's a sort of share for share, right? And this is where if you're a podcaster, interviewing other podcasters is really great. Podcasters, by the way, love to interview other podcasters because we have the best sounding audio and we kind of know how it works, right? So that's pretty cool. But also when you do a collaboration where a person is a guest on your show on the same day or the same week that you're a guest on their show, there's some really good cross promotion and cross pollinization, if you will, that can happen. This happens very often in the YouTube space, less often in the podcast space. But on YouTube, you're gonna see people like, this happens all the time, y'all. And there was a period of time where when we could all see each other, I was doing collaborations with people who I saw at events for my YouTube channel with other YouTubers. And I saw a massive spike in my YouTube growth when I did that. I had Roberto Blake on the show, any Roberto Blake in the fans, huge fan of Roberto, he's amazing. Bruh. Big fan of Sean Cannell from Video Influencers, Amy Landino, Antonio Centennial was on the show as well, and a bunch of other YouTubers too. And what was really cool was I was featured on their channels as well. And since then, for example, me and Sean, after inviting him on my show, and him not really knowing who I am, we actually got introduced, by the way, through a mutual friend, Shalene Johnson. And Shalene Johnson is somebody who I absolutely adore, and we've worked together. We got connected through podcasting, right? So it wasn't even a relationship that started through a recommendation or referral or anything like that, an introduction. It was actually the platform of podcasts that allowed for that relationship to start. And so you could see how there's now like a string of events that happens, right? So, I asked Shalene, I think Shalene was on my show first. And then she really loved sort of what we talked about, and I shared with her at the end after we finished recording. I asked her if she would love any information to her audience about affiliate marketing, because I knew that her audience were business owners who wanted to make money. And I knew that I had the superpower of affiliate marketing that likely she hadn't covered yet on her show, and I noticed that she didn't in her archive. So I said, hey, I noticed in your show that you haven't yet talked about affiliate marketing. Might I be able to come on the show and provide some value to your audience, right? Coming from a place of service, allowing her to offer even more to her audience that she couldn't offer herself, right? So then I was on her show, and that I saw a massive growth in my audience and subscriptions during that time too. And then we got started to talk, right? And then as a result of that, I was able to ask Shalene for an introduction to Sean Cannell, who has a massive YouTube channel, Video Influencers, as well as Think Media. And in fact, she told me that, oh yeah, actually, in fact, I'm gonna have Sean on my stage. I'd love to invite you on the stage too. And I was able to come to her event, which was called Marketing Impact Academy, and meet Sean backstage. And then I started talking with Sean, and Sean and I were like, dude, we got to do something together. And it was because of the fact that Shalene connected us both that was able to happen too. So this is how these relationships continue. And it's part serving others first, knowing your superpower, but also part putting yourself in a situation to have conversations and meet people too, right? And yes, it's a little bit harder nowadays not being able to meet in person, but a lot of the collaborations that I've had in my past are as a result of meeting people in person. But it's also been a result of people like Derek Halpern reaching out to me and going, hey, Pat, I want to help you. Here's how I can help you, and getting results, and me going, whoa, I need to do what I can to pay this person back. Let me feature him. And of course, Derek and I have since collaborated and talked a lot together about certain things too. So
this is the income stream to help you achieve your dream, all while we keep it clean. This is the income stream. It's the kind of show where you can come and go, but then you leave inspired with no fee required. The income stream with Pat Flynn.